Good afternoon. I hope everybody is fine. I'm very pleased to be here this afternoon with all of you. This panel is full of interesting people, and I have to acknowledge that we have a lot of students. That's why I think it will be an enthusiastic session. And it's really important to hear what you believe it's important according to the topic of our session, the agency of the student collective. However, I will have to ask you, because I will start with Professor Karin Šerman. She's the head of the Department of History and Theory of Architecture, also professor of architectural theory at the Faculty of Architecture, University of Zagreb, and according to her experience, I would like to start by asking her. I would like to start by asking you, Karin, how can we look at the original Bauhaus experience as regards to the students' collective?
Mm-hmm. Warm greetings to everyone. Thank you, Teresa, for your questions. Of course, the topic addressed in this session is extremely important because it is precisely these generations of today's students that will be shaping our future world, hopefully equally ambitiously as Bauhaus students once did, and equally successfully in that too, with the same amount of conviction, enthusiasm, energy, and belief. With the original Bauhaus being such a strong inspiration, even a symbol of an engaged and progressive shaping of the modern world, it is, of course, always worth examining the lessons and legacy of that historical model, particularly regarding our present topic of student collectives. So it is quite right to ask, what can be learned from the original school in this regard? What was the role of the student in Bauhaus, and how they created their student collectives? How students then perceived and employed their student agency. I will try to briefly address these issues. In the short 14 years of its activity, the historical Bauhaus completely changed our entire architectural, spatial, and visual world. Design, architecture, photography, visual arts, publishing, typography, advertising, in short, the whole visual paradigm. One wonders, of course, how was that at all possible? How did the school make it? What was its secret? What was its strength? What level of conviction, knowledge, and confidence was needed to successfully launch and so firmly implement an entirely new visual and spatial philosophy? Surely its charismatic founder, Walter Gropius, along with his remarkable team of teachers, did their crucial part. But this certainly could not have been achieved without equally charismatic and engaged front of students. Bauhaus students were, to be sure, an essential and indispensable agency of the school overall success. As is widely known, Bauhaus was intensely international. It gathered students not only from various parts of Europe, but also from the entire world. As such, it intentionally valued and promoted cultural differences with ideas of inclusiveness and equality. But why did students choose precisely that school, which was young, relatively small, and with no tradition at that time? What were the students' ambitions and goals in choosing precisely that specific school? And this is, I think, essential, the students' own ambitions and goals. What might have attracted them to that particular school is, first, the fact that there, all facets of art, architecture, and society were equally questioned and reconsidered in their complex relations and interconnections. In Bauhaus' approach, art and architecture were considered tightly connected to the needs of society. And second, what attracted them was the belief that by participating in that specific avant-garde laboratory, in that workshop of avant-garde thought and expression, they were creating not only something new and original, but creating something that could contribute to, or even be an instrument of, the overall reshaping of social and political conditions. That was the proper and irresistible attraction of the school to the radical, aspiring young artists and architects, this sincere faith in the larger social consequence of their immediate creation and research. Of course, that as such, the school attracted resolute and gifted young artists and architects in revolt against their own unsatisfying social and political conditions, all very much convinced that architecture might be just such an instrument of social and cultural change. Most of the Bauhaus students, and architectural students in particular, sought to balance their individual creativity and formal experimentation with social accountability and relevance. Political activism and even radicalism were always a part of the Bauhaus atmosphere. They were indeed intent on developing a new, socially attuned architecture in building the new modern world. And of course, when you have such strong convictions and such grand ambitions, then you approach your study really seriously. You take it really, really seriously. And the result is immediately pronounced amount of student proactivity and a very strong and decisive student agency. Apart from such ambitious goals, what characterized Bauhaus students was undoubtedly their pure and unquestionable talent. The admission process was strict. It was based on their portfolios and previous work, and there was indeed rigorous selection among the applicants. What was expected from the students was their versatility, resourcefulness, and ability to experiment and adapt. So, viewed in every possible respect, the student agency was really strong and influential. What were the concrete forms of student collectivity? How did Bauhaus frame its student collectives? It is fair to say that Bauhaus was, in fact, an archie example of intense collectivity, a true collective of students and teachers alike, and of students themselves with strong feelings of belonging to the school community. They all lived Bauhaus, breathed Bauhaus, lived its values and ideas. The school itself was their life frame, so to say. Being situated for almost its entire existence in two rather small German towns, Weimar and Dessau, the school functioned, in fact, as a quite autonomous artistic commune, with students living within the school, being intensely directed to one another. So, equally as in their academic workshops, in which they investigated, rehearsed, and trained modernity in their respective professional fields, it was in their daily life too, where they practiced the ideas of progress, change, liberation, and systematic broadening of horizons, be it in their very housing, or in their regular sports activities, in their strong focus on bodily culture, or in the ways of preparing food and rehearsing specific dietary principles, or in their leisure and free time, in the famous Schlemmer's theater workshop, for instance, and regular theater performances, in their well-known Bauhaus jazz band, or equally legendary Bauhaus parties, in their joint travels. It is through such various informal frames that the student collective was strengthened and galvanized. Yet what is important is that all these various forms of collectivity, of togetherness, and various sorts of joint activities were invariably used and employed as actual frames of true artistic research, where students collaborated intensely in engaged artistic experiments. Let us mention here just the famous Curie group, for instance, as one such artistic group, a revolutionary manifestation of a synthesis of art, architecture, and technology, where the very name of the group, Curie, stood for their leading ideas: constructive, utilitarian, rational, and international. Such artistic experiments permeated all the aspects of student life and activities, along with the more formal frames of joint exhibitions and publications. There was no room for old ways and habits. The life itself, as students took it, was an appealing artistic experiment. Here I cannot but ask myself, do we today, students and teachers alike share the same amounts of conviction and belief and willingness to thoroughly interrogate and change our present world. Are we equally resolute and brave in that too? With these questions, I would stop for now and let other participants join with their thoughts, and I might add a few things later. Thank you.
Thank you, Karin. It was a great way to start, and I would like, considering what's been said, I will ask Paula and Vili Rakita, because I think they have some collective experience. They have some experiments, as Karin Šerman was explaining about the Bauhaus students. Paula joined the collective pilot experience called Arquitetos de Família, that won the prize for active citizenship from the University of Porto. And Vili Rakita is a member of the editorial team of the regional student magazine and became the president of EASA Croatia. So I would like you to say something about these experiences, considering this topic of the agency of the student collective. How does it work now? What can we learn from this legacy of the original Bauhaus? Paula, can you start?
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank our hosts for this opportunity. I'm very pleased to be here. I will answer to this question by reflecting, as you said, a little bit on my experience. I graduated last year, and I can fortunately say that I had the opportunity to participate in very interesting initiatives that relate to more pedagogical fields and the pedagogical side of architecture. In 2018, I was invited to participate in this pilot experience, which allowed a group of 4 students, including myself, with the guidance of some architects and teachers, to try to come up with solutions for a specific housing problem in Porto, a phenomenon called ilhas. That experience gave us something that until then, no other experience, I think, had given me in school. That was the possibility to solve an urgent problem, of, in this case, of precarious housing, with the architectural skills that I had learned so far, and also learned from the experience itself. I felt I became more aware. It changed a lot of my educational path. I utilized my skills in a pressing matter and completed my studies with a practical experience. If I hadn't had this opportunity, I feel that the step to my professional career would have been more than a big jump than a step. When I think about the benefits of having this kind of contact with more practical processes and projects, I always end up comparing it on my mind in a metaphorical way, of course, to getting your driver's license. We usually learn everything there is to know how to control the car, but it's only until you get your license, and in this case, to get contact with this reality, that you really learn how to drive. So for me, it was the same kind of feeling when I got the chance to pop this reality bubble, and I felt it was really important to get to do it while I was still in school. So it was a great experience also, because to get in touch with the other non-architects, architectural intervenients in this kind of processes that also have important roles and influence them. This opportunity allowed us to understand our limits too, and learn with other fields, creating multidisciplinary dialogues that had a positive influence in the end result. I feel this was really important too. So with this, I mean to say that I personally believe that universities have a crucial influence on this matter as a starting point. Of course, we need to be more proactive in embracing these challenges. They are the key to create new opportunities of learning, combining what they know students need to learn and what urgent problems can be solved by young architects, with guidance, of course, letting them participate in meaningful projects that can contribute to change. And that change can be made in different levels. We can produce projects that solve a specific problem. We can accumulate knowledge that will lead to researches or discussion. And we can even end up finding alternative solutions for various problems simultaneously. I can start by trying to solve a housing problem and end up with solutions that also respond to climate change and more sustainable solutions. Schools can create this spaces for students to get in contact with more or less fragile realities. Creating an optional workshop was the way to go in my case, but I think even mandatory studios can be the way to go, which are focused on engaging the students to act upon these pressing matters. And we also live in a world that's where everything is changing really fast, and we get a lot of information everywhere, and sometimes we don't know we need it. We need this kind of knowledge until we get to know it. So I believe the solution is to get a little bit closer to reality and embrace this challenge and create strategies that lead to change.
Thank you, Paula. So now, Vili.
Hi, thank you. Hello. For many years, I've been very lucky to be a part of EASA, or the European Architecture Students Assembly, which is kind of an organic network of students from all countries of Europe, who regularly communicate and think about ways of changing the world. This network manifests each year at a 2-week assembly where students participate in workshops, which are student-led. And the whole event is organized and conceptualized by students. Here, of course, there is this value about which Paula was talking about, where students kind of get to engage with some real problems and participate in workshops, which are theoretical or formal. But maybe even the more important part of this yearly assembly is the community of about 500 international students, which live and work in the same space. All of these students have a few things in common, and those are that they are kind of unhappy with their educational system or parts of it. They're kind of unhappy with the way the world is and are eager to try to find ways to change it and to act. This is a very interesting example of a horizontal network where this agency is actually real. So this need to act comes from the students themselves, and they act upon it. It's not something that is that comes from faculties or professors. And I think this is a very important part of what we are talking about. I feel that encouraging agency is not something that can or should be institutional. I think it's something that the system kind of gives space for and time, but it's not something that a faculty maybe can kind of initiate or should initiate. I feel that throughout my kind of experience with student actions, I feel that the basic triggers are kind of dissatisfaction, but kind of the catalyst for agency is, I think, time. And I think that's maybe the biggest problem with our current educational system, is that students don't really have the time to decide to act. They become resigned with the way things are because they have to focus on one thing or another. So I think what faculties can do to facilitate student agency is to simply give students time and space, which is like which can be physical, but also like mindfully, to kind of decide on their own that they what they want to change and how they should change it. I think that's it for the beginning.
Thank you, Vili. And now, well, we still have two students, Beatriz Rosendo and Reis Novakovic. And well, I have to say they both have living roles in their schools. Beatriz was till recently the president of the Students of Association of Faculty of Architecture of the University of Porto, that won the prize Best Practices in Students Associations by Portuguese Institute of Sports and Youth. And Reis Novakovic is the vice president of the student body at the Faculty of Architecture of the University of Zagreb. So, considering that you have experienced a leadership position making certain collective work, I would like to ask you, how do we frame the collectives of our schools and reaffirm the school as part of a cultural and societal collective in the broadest sense? How is this perspective of governing from the students' point? Reis, do you want to start?
Okay, hi. When talking about putting schools on a broader radar in terms of cultural and social impact, I think we need to go outside of school walls, and that projects that our student collectives organize should have a bigger support from the university and maybe the city where the university is located, and the content needs to be interesting to a wider public and in a way that wider public can participate. And I think the basic thing is to continue to what Vili was talking, is to give space and time to students so they can actually act. And I think that also there needs to be a lot more collaboration between faculties at the university and different departments. And I think, and I believe that there will always be students that want to participate, but often they don't know how to do it, where to do it, or with what funds to do it. And if there is more support and those kinds of projects are easier to start in terms of technical difficulties and everything that I said, the space and the time and the funds, that there will surely be more projects that can make a difference in a bigger sense, engage a wider public in their projects.
Thank you, Reis. Beatriz.
Hi everyone, thank you for the invitation. I really see eye to eye with what Reis was saying, and actually Vili and Paula, because in addition to that, I think firstly the school should be able to work as a society itself, and the school should have a proximity approach towards its students and their projects, and share their work outside of the school walls too. And taking some of, and then the school should enroll in community activities too, and should have an active role in urbanistic for example, urbanistic decisions in its city. And with this, I mean, have a political participation too, probably, about the city's decisions that are being taken. And I see that alongside with what Vil and Rhea were saying about the time and the mental space and the physical space, one of the suggestions should be taking a program of the subject that in Paula's case was optional and make it one of the main subjects of 1 year or in each year. So the students could be more involved with the communities they are inserted to and the context and all the things that happen around them, and not be closed in just what happens in school and their lives, and have an active role about the community and take part in the community they are inserted in.
Thank you, Beatriz. Probably I would get back to Karin because, well, it seems that we have some different points here to enhance. Well, Vili was telling that probably it shouldn't be institutional, or it shouldn't be institutionalized, but somehow at the same time we have this idea that if schools don't give this space or this time or these opportunities, it's really difficult for students to find a way of participating. And Karin, you were explaining how important was Walter Gropius in the original Bauhaus. So probably I would get back to you, asking you this same question. If you feel that schools must have a crucial role, must make this time, create laboratories for these experiences in real world happen, or somehow establish ways of creating these student collectives that could really engage with the society and the problems of the surrounding world.
Yes, I cannot but notice this huge difference if we speak in comparison to Bauhaus, how then students really lived with the school and found time and space within the school. I mean, they totally engaged with the ideas and values of the school, whereas now we are hearing the need to get time and space outside the walls of the schools, and that is upsetting from one point, but on the other, the awareness that you have maybe different ideas, different possible approaches would not arise without some expectations of the school. So your need to get out of it is also a reaction to some sort of challenge or expectation that the school as institution put on you. So the school as institution is indispensable in either way. But I would maybe also point to another aspect if we compare the two schools and if we try to learn from the legacy of the Bauhaus. I would like to compare eventually the different complexities of the world then and today. I mean, no matter how difficult their historical situation was in 1919 and in the 1920s after First World War and the oil crisis, today's situations seem somehow still more complex. And here I mean already in pure structural terms. Namely, today, we are plunged into our dynamic, constantly changing, uncertain, unpredictable, rhizomatic reality, as if I may say so, marked with intense multiplicity, diversity, nomadic views, and different understandings. I stress this because of the infinitely more demanding tasks that confront us today, and incomparably more complex ways of operating that are needed today. The visions of there being one right approach, one solution, one aesthetics, one way of seeing the world and how it should look like are over. Today, we face just multiple truths, multiple visions, heterogeneous understandings, and even opposite approaches. Opposite, yet all equally valid and obliging. And in such present condition, it is then so much harder to act and to teach. I mean, Gropius, Meyer, Mies, and the entire Bauhaus faculty, all remarkable experts as they were, they knew how they wanted their new modern industrial world to look like, how they wanted it to function. They knew what their goal was, and they knew how to get there. Of course, they were open to experiment and innovation in the creative process, but they knew how to guide that process, how to shape it. They knew where they wanted to get, what is right and what is wrong. And today, do we still know that today? Can we at all know? Can we be sure about many things anymore, let alone about some new aesthetics that is supposed to be obliging for us all? Of course, that is no more the case. This certainty is gone forever. And correspondingly, the level of experimentation in architectural schools is infinitely more open. We all find ourselves on insecure ground, students and teachers alike. And therefore, we all have to search and experiment. Nobody here is in the know anymore, not as it once was. And this throws another light on the role of the student in the educational process today, which becomes infinitely more important and more consequential. By the logic of that very situation, students today are called upon to accept still greater level of proactivity and engagement. I mean, student agency is vastly interpolated, invited to action, invited to act more consequentially as ever before, to really co-create values, to co-create criteria, to co-create aims and ideas, to co-create their very educational process too, and to investigate this new changing ground and architecture's position with utmost openness of mind, with all their acuteness and resourcefulness, and without any preconceived solutions and predefined direction. It is their world they're about to build, and they should accept this call. Yes, it is a lot of responsibility, and yes, it is a heavy burden, but this is what the times demand of us. And I wonder whether we are all ready for this. Are we ready to embrace this new role, new tasks, and plunge without fear into this new, insecure, yet I think rewarding, professional and pedagogical adventure? In that sense, I think it is never enough effort to be invested in strengthening the students' proactivity. This culture of proactivity is something worth nurturing and fostering, along with the habit of critical thinking. This proactivity, however, should be ambitious, always directed to achieving more, aimed at tracing the ways of meaningful and productive interaction with the issues and situations surrounding us. If students feel that they need to get out of the school in order to research that, I can understand that, and I support that initiative and that wish. But really, to be aware all the time that it's upon you to build a future world, and that you really need to address these issues thoroughly. And I really, of course, expect that from all of you, and know that you can do it. And I await from you, and I would be glad to hear what ways of your initiative, student initiative, you deem productive enough within which to act. what forms of collectivity do you, or which frame of action you find most productive and most fruitful? And I'm glad that I'll get the answers soon. Thank you.
Yes, I will pass them on to you. So what are the forms that you believe that work better? Anyone? Really?
Yeah, I just first want to kind of acknowledge what Professor Karin said, kind of maybe about the difference between today's schools and Bauhaus, where they kind of all lived the school and actually lived inside it and had a formed community, but they also had kind of these clear values and almost an agenda and an ideology. And also were very aware of all of these world problems that they were facing. I said the thing about non-institutional agency because I feel that many of our schools today are kind of completely opposite to this. We are today just kind of given the most basic tools of learning how to design. But this whole sphere which made Bauhaus so maybe productive and socially engaged, those are things that are very rarely talked about in the schools, in architecture schools today. But if that was happening, that would be great, and it would be very nice. But about the ways of acting and the frames, I think anything that kind of gathers students together is good. So when students gather, they can talk to each other, they can share their ideas and views, and from that, any action I think can spring up. And these kinds of ways of collecting, most basic one is just hanging out at the school, but there's also organizing workshops, organizing panels and lectures, some kinds of defined places where these things are encouraged. There's starting magazines and stuff like that, taking road trips. So I don't know, these are some of the more basic frames for collectivity.
Well, I would ask Paula. Thank you, Vili. Considering that you are just starting your professional career and you still have this proximity to your student experiences, how can you look to that recent past and tell us something about what would be the opportunities or the ways to create stronger student collectives, or meaning that could provide meaningful experiences regarding this complexity of issues that are surrounding us?
First of all, I would like to add that I was taking notes, and it's very interesting to see that we all agree in the problem but diverge in the solution, and I'm very happy generally to see that we agree to disagree, because at least we are talking about different kinds of approaches. And the way I see it, being more global, it doesn't mean that we need to get away from school. So what I mean is that we can do both, and the challenge is to find that balance between opening our doors to reality and at the same time having space to create more theoretical or even discussing, because in my experience, I do agree that I learned a lot from my peers, but I also learned a lot from my teachers. And I was very fortunate that they gave me the opportunity to find solutions, but also to exercise experience and discussion and strategic thinking. So I do think this is kind of the way to go. It's kind of my suggestion is to try to find a balance, because as I said, I'm very close to my educational path, but I'm also already working, and I think it had a really great impact. So I'm not sure about the solution itself, but I think we'll get there sooner than we think. And I don't know if I'm diverging a little bit from your question, but a little bit, yeah. But I think, sorry, I don't know.
Well, but it's fine, because at the end, I would like everybody to answer this idea that was put on the table, that students must have an agenda, students have an ideology. So how do we create opportunities to these collectives that really, it seems clear that we all agree that are really important in the present day. So Beatriz, you could add something on this.
Yeah, I would like to comment on that. I think, as you said, the university should be a place where students discover their agenda and they explore what agenda they want to have and want to perceive and want to discover. Because I can give you the example of the Students' Assembly here in Porto. We have several kinds of departments with different objectives, as sports or cultural or recreational, or even we even do a magazine, and at the same time we can organize and discover what we want to do through architecture and through an assembly. And in this, and I think it should be a path to self-discovery and to think in what ways and with which means should create a better world and a better environment. And at the same time, the school, at least in the final year, has an urbanistic approach in the design studio. And we are encouraged to go to the sites and to talk to people and to see what they need there and to suggest something and to really work with the community. I'm in favor of working in the communities that are closest to us, because it's the place that we live in. And if every university or department can make these kind of approaches happen, we can actually have a global intervention through local intervention, if I make myself understandable.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that's my opinion on that.
Rhea, it's on you now.
So I think that Beatriz was at some point what I was saying before, when I said that we need to go outside the walls. It doesn't mean like detaching from the university, but having content that can really impact the society that we live in. And I think that that is a great idea, everything that she said, that actually students work within the community. And I think that just the university needs to give time and space again, so that it's possible. And that is the biggest change that should happen at the educational level. So we can have a practical experience at the university, and then it isn't anymore just for the academic purpose. And I think that sometimes there is a feeling that the academic world is like closed up and for itself. And the point is, if we want the student collective to be more proactive and to carry agency, I think it's important to go in that direction and like engage with the wider public, and then we can actually have an impact on the university level. And for that we need time and space, and I think that the direction then it needs to be some kind of a change in the curriculum, where we have different kinds of projects to what it is now, where projects where we can actually be more proactive. And I think that the whole educational system needs to change, because we live in a different time, and sometimes the educational system is a little bit still in the old ways of teaching. So I think that I agree pretty much with everything that everyone said, but I think we need to take parts of everything and like incorporate it in a new system. So
can I add something?
Yes, of course.
I would like to say, because these kinds of interactions should be accountable for the both sides, either the students as the EASA and in the universities themselves. The examples I gave was within the university as its subjects of teaching and learning, and the students' assembly. But I can give another example, like a group of students wanted to do a little farming near to the school, and they were already thinking about how it could be a circle about farming some vegetables and some fruits, and then can purchase them or sell them to the students' bar, and then it could all function. So this, I think, is a very beautiful example that it didn't come from within the faculty or the students' assembly that sometimes has the image of being a closed group of students, but I don't think so. But it came from outside, and they asked for help for the students' assembly and for the faculty too. And I think we should promote these kinds of activities and ways of thinking and discussing them, and the university and the students should be accountable for what they do and what they don't do as well.
Thank you. I would like to get back to some words of Karin when she said that it is never enough to invest in students' proactivity. And I have to, well, I'm moderating this session, but I have to explain some part of my recent experience, because I really believe that the school must do something in this opening the walls of the university. So in the, well, it's been a few years that I've been working with my students of the urban project of the 5th year, creating a connection between the work that they must do and the municipalities where the territories they are trying to qualify with those municipalities that are in charge of a particular territory. And what I believe in this, goes back to the idea if we should or not institutionalize this investment in students' proactivity. But the truth is, sometimes I think this idea of leading the students to a particular area and creating a frame where they can connect with the actors, the civil actors, the political actors, with everybody, and trying to achieve a proposal that, of course, has a lot of liberty, because it's in the academic world, but still deals with most of this complex reality that Karin was showing in the first place. It seems like important for me to create this opportunity to to fade the walls between the academy and the real world. I would ask you if you believe this is a way to change, to create these opportunities to agency the students, or if you have other ideas that, besides creating space, giving more time to students, that schools should address in order to invest in this proactivity. Karin, do you want to start?
Well, I think that this question should be addressed to the students primarily, because we await the proposals and ideas, how they think which format would be most productive and fruitful. Yes, so I will let these questions to students. I would maybe add just another of my thoughts and fears. And I would like to touch the issue of collectivity once more. Students' collectivity, or collectivity in general, which has been particularly endangered in this past year and a half, in these pandemic times, when the collective has been atomized and secluded into secure individual cells. Of course, to be sure, the collectivity had been progressively jeopardized even in previous decades, in times of ever progressive individualism. The pandemic just gave the final blow to the idea of collective. Collectivity, in other words, will have to be reconsidered. It will have to be trained and practiced anew. Its benefits will have to be acknowledged and appreciated anew. Just as the advantages of an actual physical space, as opposed to the virtual space. And I wonder how the students find this current situation, whether they manage to develop equally successful virtual networking and productive modes of maintaining their collectives even in virtual world, or has the notion of a collective and of a public space changed through these recent experiences? Has it altered altogether? I'm very much interested in hearing the students' perspectives on this issue. How you manage to secure your collectives, your activities, your collective activities. So I'm broadening Teresa's question. Sorry, Teresa, but there is so much.
It's fine.
That I would
it's
like.
Great. Thank you. So, Ria, could you start by answering?
Yeah, I think that in my own experience, I have a few years of participating in many student projects, and there is a change at the moment. I feel it, that students want to act. And after this long period of having nothing, and all of the student activities have been shut down, in my case, at our faculty, I think there is a strong momentum where students really want to participate. And in the last month since school started, a lot of students reached out and asked if they can help to organize things, projects, workshops, lectures, anything. They really, I think that it's natural. Everyone feels the lack of community and really wants to join now. So I think that this is a really great time to start things again. And it has like, again, it's going to the peak. So I hope that nothing changes and it keeps going up. Because I think even before the pandemic, it was kind of in decline. And I think that this long pause just encouraged them to, again, reach out and try to participate again. So I hope something comes from it.
This is great to hear.
Yes. We have to finish, so I will ask everybody to say something very, very quickly. But I would like to hear everybody. So
I can try only to answer your first question, not this one about the partnerships, because I do believe in this case, that in my experience, having had contact with the municipality and other intervenients on the project I was working, really influenced the way that we got results. And here time also, I think in a different matter, but time is very important, because alone I couldn't have gone knock the door, hey, can you help me? And I think the university here allowed me to communicate with these entities that otherwise I wouldn't be so easily, I couldn't do it so easily. So I do believe that part of the solution comes by also getting to dialogue with other outside entities, and taking the space for students to ask questions, to learn from them, and that can also be a solution, I think.
Beatriz, very briefly.
I'll try. So, Rhea, I'm really glad to hear that everything is going up again. From my experience, and I was the president of the Students' Assembly for the 2 COVID years. So in the first year, everything was going great and everything was motivated, or most of them. But then the pandemic hit and everything was scattered. And we had some difficulties communicating between ourselves, and everything was a surprise and everything was scared, and everyone didn't know quite well what was happening as the rest of the world. So in the following year, I noticed a very serious and threatening decline of the students, about the importance that the active participation the students were considering about their designs, about their professors, about their school, and I found that very bad, actually, and it was kind of sad seeing that so few students were willing to do something, and because they were tired too, and they were getting through all of what we have been through. But now I'm hopeful too. I'm not at the moment at the Students' Assembly, but I've been accompanying it, and I think people are very eager to express themselves, not on a political way until now, but I'm hopeful it will be we will have a very good surprise. And I think that this sense of community should start at early ages, not only in the universities too. It should start before, and so it can be like normalized, and it can be something that we later see on the job market, the ateliers, the companies, the enterprises. And I think sometimes the students' collectives and the student assemblies, from my experience, sometimes we're not taking all that seriously. And I think it's something we have to fight every day. And I think showing what we can do for our environments, it's a great way of saying that we are serious about this. And sometimes I get the notion that combining studies and representative responsibilities can be hard, but it's necessary. And to foment such leadership positions and leadership roles and social accountability, it's very important for building character and and to give like strength to our communities. So I'm very hopeful that after this COVID hard times, we can do better, and we can reach far better results in our society.
Thank you. Philly, we will finish with your thoughts. You have to turn on the sound.
Yeah, I want to say for the end, whether or whether or not student agency comes from the students themselves or is initiated by faculties. I think we can emphasize what Beatriz said, that kind of the systems should take students more seriously and realize that kind of we can all work together, the professors and the students, to maybe most importantly, broaden the set of tools that our education gives us, from maybe today, which is design and urban planning, to also encompass public participation, political action, I don't know, working in communities and stuff like this. So we're looking forward to cooperating in the future.
Thank you so much, Vili. Thank you all. It was really fantastic. I think we all learned a lot. For me, it was really interesting. So I hope together we can change something from now on with the help of all our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.